First, man, I want to thank you, man, for it. Thank you. Case don't know, Skip Great, aka Skip Trisman is this. That's great, yes, Lord. Today, what I'm about to go over is about 400 years of slavery in America, and it's called Breaking the Chains. And the reason I'm calling it Breaking the Chains is because on August of 1619, it was documented that the first slave landed in America. Now, the reason I'm calling it the 400 years of slavery is because there's two things that have been implemented that have everybody's minds all stuck on slavery. And that's the Willie Lynch letter and the Bible. Now, before I get started, the objective is I'm going to present the many facets of limitations, which I consider change, forcefully placed within the mind and spirit in attempts to unravel the construct that's hindering the freedom to be. And as we know, it's quotes in the Bible or quotes of any kind of wisdom or anything, as far as a man thinketh, so is he. So if you look at it, you keep seeing a lot of slavery movies. They keep telling you, pumping roots in your face, 12 years a slave. They pumping all this to you. That's because if they keep your mind stuck on it, you'll keep thinking as one. And before I get really started and into this information, I want to read a little quote. And this is a quote that you can probably take forward, you know what I'm saying, moving forward. It says, "But first thou must tear off from thee the cloak which thou dost wear, the web of ignorance, the ground of bad, corruption's chain, the carapace of darkness, the living death, sensation's courts, the tomb thou carriest with thee, the robber in thy house, who through the things he loveth hated thee, and through the things he hated bears thee malice. Such is the hateful cloak thou wearest, that throttles thee and holds thee down to it, in order that thou mayest not gaze above, and having seen the beauty of the truth, and good that dwells therein, detest the bad of it, having found out the plot that it has schemed against thee, by making void of sense those seeming things which men think senseless." So what it is, this is a quote from Hermes Trismegistus. That's coming from the Corpus Hermeticum. And what it's saying is that the greatest ill of man is the ignorance of God. And what it's talking about is showing you that the ignorance of God is saying the things above thee is also the things within you. So now by keeping you ignorant of what's within you, that's what's really having you hindered and having you ignorant to the fact that you are being controlled, mind controlled, spiritually controlled, and in other forms. So now, as I move forward, one misconception that we do have is that they want to tell you that all blacks, quote unquote, that was in America were slaves. That is completely false. That is completely false. It's a record only between 7 to 12% of the Africans that were here in America came from Africa. The rest were already here. Already here. Now, you have different forms of it. You have actual slaves that came from Africa. You also have the indentured servitude, which is also the prisoners of war, and then sharecropping. Now, the reason I'm talking about that is because if you look at the Homestead Act, knowing that we were here first, that as aboriginals of this land, because this land was not called America. Before it was America, it was called Turtle Island. And aborigines that were here, because you have to see that the land that the colonies had was 13. That's on the southern border and on the east coast. You still have the rest of the Americas. So you have to realize that those slaves that came from Africa was only through those 13 colonies. So we were already here. That's why you hear a lot of those wars, War to Tecumseh and all that. You hear how a lot of the aborigines and indigenous was killed by smallpox. Don't worry about the smallpox, because they can tell you anything about what diseases and whatnot. Just know that the key factor is they were killed. And those who did not want to be killed were prisoners of war. Those were made slaves. Now you also had those who were already here. Now also with the Homestead Act, it was giving Western immigrants 160 acres of land to come over here. Now if you only have 13 colonies, where are you getting this 160 acres from? Because they said over millions of Europeans came here. So where are you getting this land from? The Aborigines that were already here. So what they did is you either die or you give over the land and be forced your whole tribe family to death. Now, if you know that these people here know the land off rip, when you got these settlers coming in, they know nothing about the Americans. So what they did is, that's where you get sharecropping. That's where you get indentured servitude. You have right here, indentured servitude is a servant or indentured laborer as an employee within a system of unfree labor who is bound by a signed or forced contract to work for a particular employer for a fixed time. And sharecropping, because like I said, they didn't know the land. So you had those who were already here, they knew the land. That's where you get these contracts. Because the Articles of Confederation, before it became the Constitution and all this, that, and the third, the Articles of Confederation, that was the Aborigines law. And under the Articles of Confederation, that was where we got our reward. That's where we got our just due. That's where our contracts come in, to where we get our just due and our payments off of what work that we've done. Contracts. The only reason why now people are talking about reparations is because of those sharecroppers. A contract was breached. So when people talking about reparations, it's not reparations for slaves. It's not reparations for slaves. The reparations is coming for those who were cheated out the contract that were sharecroppers, because they owed a certain amount of money just by being an indentured servant. Now, sharecropping is a form of agriculture in which a landowner allows a tenant to use the land in return for a share of the crop's produce on their portion of land. Sharecropping has a long history, and there are a wide range of different situations and types of agreements that have used a form of the system. So that's why reparations, people thinking that all blacks is gonna get reparations. No. Because if you actually look at it now, you see the separation. If you have those that were 7 to 12% of the slaves here came from Africa, the rest were already here. It's not for the slaves, it's for the sharecroppers. So you have to look at who were actually farming the land. So a slave couldn't get reparations because a slave has no right to the land. So you have to look at those sharecroppers that already owned the land but considered themselves tenants to farm the land because of that Homestead Act. Their land was signed over and given in that deal. So those who the reparations is going to go to. Now, if we look at the psychology of it, if you look at this, let me go back and give you the definition. Matter of fact, give you the definition of what a slave is. A slave is a person owned by someone, and slavery is the state of being under the control of someone where a person is forced to work for another. A slave is considered as a property of another, as the one controlling them purchased them or owns them from their birth. Now, a lot of people, when you hear slave, you keep thinking about chains, whips, indentured servitude, sharecropping. But if you look at the full definition of this, you're a slave now. You are a slave now. Because one thing right here says, a slave is considered as a property of another, as the one controlling them purchased them or owns them from their birth. You have a Social Security number. So now that makes you an employee of the U.S. Inc., which United States of America is a corporation. Haven't been a country since. America has been bankrupt about 3, 4, 5 times already. And if you look after the Great Depression in I think it was 1931 or 1933, the whole government was dissolved. So there is no American government. You have European bankers that came in and picked up the slack for America. That's why you have U.S. Inc. And when they say that, oh, America is owned by the foreign bankers, that's why. That is definitely why. So now when you look at your birth certificate under miseducation, when your parents signed your birth certificate, that birth certificate is bond paper. So now that birth certificate is also under maritime law. That by your parents signing your birth certificate, that made you deemed lost at sea and incompetent. So now, by you being considered lost at sea and incompetent, you're now a ward of the state. You are a ward of the state since birth. So since you came out the womb, according to the legal definition of slavery, you was a slave as soon as you came out your mother's womb. The moment that birth certificate was signed, you were a slave right then and there. So now, let's keep moving forward. You work your job right now. You work your job right now. You give 110% at your job. You get taxes taken out, you get all this, that, and the third taken out, and you gotta look at how much, if you ever ask, and I dare your boss even do this, you ask your boss how much do they bring in off of your work alone, and you look at your paycheck, does it add up? That's why I said a slave is a person owned by someone, because when you sign that contract, that 1099, and you do that all your tax information, is a state of being under control of someone, where a person is forced to work for another. So now, every time you clock in, you are what? A slave. You're a slave. And that's why they don't want to tell you to work for yourself. That's why they don't push. That's why you had to have these laws to push for small business. Small business. Entrepreneur. It's just recently we just started hearing about entrepreneurship. Yes, exactly. And people don't. And by America being a corporation, if you become a corporation, you just have as much power as an individual as the United States of America, because now you have your own set of bylaws. You have your own governing ordinances. So you don't have to abide by America, because as you being a corporation and America being a corporation, you are its own entity as America. You are just as its own entity. Now, I want to also dispel this myth that about this Emancipation Proclamation. Now, it was President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, as the nation approached its third year of bloody civil war. The proclamation declared that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states are and henceforth shall be free. Now, if you look at free, that says it should be free from the slavery in that physical form, but it said nothing about freedom. So all it did was that it took them out of that indentured servitude state in the physical nature, but brought it into a more economical state. Because the reason why, if you look at the Civil War, if you know that the Civil War, that we're already here, the Aborigines, they have you all in history thinking that it was all Europeans versus North European versus European. No, because there were more Aborigines here than Europeans just in those 13 colonies. So you got to look at who was the Civil War against. The colonists and the Aborigines. So the colonists were losing. So the only way they could win, they had to free the slaves. They had to free. And a lot of people argue like, man, they went back. How? I mean, what they're gonna do? I mean, we have to really look at what are we gonna do if you're a slave, and the only thing you know is I got this job, this is where I stay, you don't know nothing else. And you get freed from doing that type of work, and now you have to fend for yourself. Because when they got here, you don't know this language. You can't even communicate with the people of your same tribe, because when they brought them here, they dispelled them. When you have the Aborigines that was the prisoners of war here, their tribe split up, and there's no common communication, so nobody can get on one accord. Where are they gonna go? What they gonna do? They can't communicate, don't know where. So the only place they know is to go back. That's the only place they know. But the reason why I say that the Civil War was taught to be wrong is because I did a little research and I found out about the Iroquois Confederacy. Now, the Iroquois Confederacy was a confederation of Native American Indians, which is the Aborigines, which was originally composed of 5 tribes consisting of the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca peoples. The political agreement that kept the 13 colonies conjoined during the War of Independence was the Articles of Confederation, created November 15, 1777. The indigenous form of government by the Iroquois and allied tribes and their confederacy was one of the political models for the rebelling colonies. That's why I said the Articles of Confederation was really, that was our agreement. But, you know, it's a good artist borrow, great artist steal. You know what I'm saying? So now, if we look at that, on the mental side, you have this slavery system that was dealing with since 1690. That you can obviously see that that system has not changed. It's still here. It's still here. The biggest thing that was done was you took away culture, you took away language, you disrupted family. I mean, the whole fabric of being was disrupted and destroyed. That's why you have going all the way through. It was always a fight of what we're going to call it. Everybody had a title they wanted to call the Aborigines instead of who they were. That's why you had colored, you had Negro, you had black, you had African American. None of them have legal standing. Not one of them. Not one of them has legal standing. And the reason I say that is I got a few definitions from Black's Law. Now this comes from Black's Law Dictionary, the 4th edition. This is 4th edition. Now, the term Negro. It says the word Negro means a black man, one descended from the African race, and does not commonly include a mulatto. But the laws of the different states are not uniform in this respect. Some including the description Negro, one who has 1/8 or more of African blood. Term Negro means necessarily person of color, but not every person of color is Negro. Now that's real big. This statement: Negro means necessarily person of color, but not every person of color is Negro. Now let's go to the law definition of color, and you're gonna see how African American and Negro and color has no legal standing, because it says Negro is a descendant of African race. But if you're already Aborigine of here, where's the African race coming from? And a lot of people who keep pumping this African American know that a large portion, a majority of people who are here are not African. But you keep calling yourself African American, that gives you no legal standing, because that's what it said, Negro. Negro is of African descent, and Negro means colored person. Now this what ties it all in, colored. By common usage in America, this term in such phrases as colored persons, the colored race, colored men, and the like is used to designate Negroes, or persons of the African race, including all persons of mixed blood descended from Negro ancestors. Now here's the icing on the cake. It has also been held that there is no legal, technical signification to the phrase colored person, which the courts are bound judicially to know. They don't have to know you. They don't have to know you. They don't have to recognize you. So if you know that being a colored is meaning that you are a Negro of African descent, because that's what Negro means, of African descent, and colored means a Negro of calling yourself Negro, Black, or African American, it has also been held that there is no legal technical signification to the phrase colored person, which the courts are bound judicially to know. So why would the courts want to know you when you don't know yourself? Why would they want to know you? They don't have to recognize you. You don't recognize yourself. You do not recognize yourself. So now let me move on a little bit forward. I have also in here the Willie Lynch letter. Now a lot of people want to refer to the Willie Lynch letter when it comes to slavery. What it is that they say Willie Lynch was a British slave owner from the West Indies that came here in 1712 and gave a letter to the slave masters on how to treat the rebellious slaves that they already had. There is no documented proof that such Willie Lynch ever existed. There's no documented proof. But what's in this letter, it is proof that this letter's impact definitely does exist. Now, a lot of people want to refer Willie Lynch to the Lynch laws. You have two people on there. You have Charles Lynch and you have Colonel William Lynch. Now, both of those, the reason why you have Lynch laws is because both of those people had their own militia, had their own court system, especially Charles Lynch. Charles Lynch went through Virginia, and he felt that slaves were inappropriate. He had his own court set up, arbitrated how the trial he wanted it to go, and imposed his own punishment by lynching. And the same way with Colonel William Lynch. And the crazy thing about it is the Virginia legislature backed them up. Now, none of these lynches that Charles Lynch or William Lynch did were constitutionally or even law justified. But Virginia legislature backed them up. So that's where you get the lynch laws, because they were lynching people so ridiculously that they got out of hand. But I'm gonna keep moving forward. It's a reason why I'm really putting a lot of emphasis on lynching. It's a major reason. But I'm gonna read this letter just for those who haven't even read it. And then also, what I got it from, I got this Willie Lynch letter, and this is a book called The Willie Lynch Letter, and the Making of a Slave. The Willie Lynch Letter and the Making of a Slave. I'm gonna read the Willie Lynch letter. I'm not gonna go fully into the Making of a Slave, but this was given December 25th, 1712, supposedly. And it says, "Gentlemen, I greet you here on the bank of the James River in the year of our Lord 1712. First, I shall thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I'm here to help you solve some of your problems with slaves. Your invitation reached me on my modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still oldest methods for control of slaves. Ancient Rome would envy us if my program is implemented. As our boat sailed south on the James River, named for our illustrious king, whose version of the Bible we cherish," keep that in note, "whose version of the Bible we cherish, I saw enough to know that your problem is not unique. While Rome used cords of wood as crosses for standing human bodies along its highways in great numbers, you are here using the tree and the rope on occasions. I caught the whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple miles back. You are not only losing valuable stock by hangings, you are having uprisings. Slaves are running away, your crops are sometimes left in the fields too long for maximum profit. You suffer occasional fires, your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are. I do not need to elaborate. I am not here to enumerate your problems. I'm here to introduce you to a method of solving them. In my bag here, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if instilled correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. My method is simple. Any member of your family or your overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves and make the differences bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control." Now, this is a key point right here. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control. This is not saying between him and his slaves. The fear is between him and his slaves, but the distrust and the envy comes from the slaves amongst each other. So if you look at this, that's still prevalent today. We fear every governing body. We fear everybody who we feel that has some sort of control or some sort of power. We fear them. We fear what we don't know. We try to conquer what we don't understand. But you can have your next door neighbor. Let them do a little bit better, or let you do a little bit better than them. Envy, distrust. And that's a form of control. So the more we distrust each other, the more we envy each other, We might think we are controlling the situation, but where the ultimate control goes to? The governing bodies. Because now all it does is give you more separation to where a house divided can't stand. A house divided can't stand, so you're easily conquered. So now it says, these methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple list of differences and think about them. On top of my list is age, but it's there only because it starts with an A. The second is color or shade. There is intelligence, size, sex, size of plantation, and status on plantations, attitude of owners, whether the slaves live in the valley, on a hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action. But before that, I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy stronger than adulation, respect or admiration. The black slaves, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. So that's why they say we carrying the system on ourselves. We don't have the media can put whatever they want out there. But the media ain't telling us don't trust each other. The media ain't telling us don't work with one another. The media ain't telling us envy one another. If you actually look at it, we're doing that on our own. You feel me? We're doing that on our own. So it said, don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have you white servants and overseers distrust all blacks. Let me say that one more time. You must also have you white servants and overseers distrust all blacks. So if you know that people that's over you don't trust you, so why do we keep running to those over us for a helping hand? And we turn right around and don't trust each other when it's actually true to that cliche. We all we got. We are all we got. If it's in the innate nature, just off of this Willie Lynch syndrome, that the governing, the powers that be, don't trust us, why do we keep running to them? They don't have our best interest at heart. And if you actually look at it now, if you know that the powers that be don't have our best interest at heart, and your fellow brother and sister don't have your best interest at heart, hell, you in this game by your damn self. On my own. You know what I'm saying? You're on your own now. And that's why a house divided cannot stand. Now, this also, if you listen to this, it takes a little bit from when we start talking about in the Bible about Armageddon. And toward the end time, you have father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter. Don't that sound kind of similar? That's Armageddon. So if you know that Armageddon means the end of the world. Now, if you look at, when I talk about end of the world starts here. Everything that you see out here is the creation of somebody's thought. Even a child's birth. It didn't start off. People think it started off as a semen, a sperm connecting with an ovum. No. It started off as a thought. And that action procreated to what you have now as a human being. So if you look at everything that you see on top of planet Earth that cannot be recreated or reproduced by man, everything else was. A car, that's a man's thought. House, man's thought. Cell phone, chair, table, window, door, curtains, blanket, whatever. That all started with a man's thought. So now if you look at it, like I said, Armageddon. That's the end of the world. So now if you know that the world is created through your thoughts, all they have to do is control your thoughts, and you can bring Armageddon to your world that you're creating around you by pinning you against your daughter. Pinning your daughter against you against your son against you, pinning you against your brother, having you separated from your... Look. If you look at the primordial system that we come from, as not as aborigines, as the initial fabric of family, we ain't never had this problem. Ain't never had to worry about no daycare. You ain't never had to worry about who's teaching your children. We never ever have to worry about that because Big Mama was in the house. We got away from the village. It said it takes a village to raise a child. That's just part of it. It takes a village to raise a culture. And if you keep looking at that village as being disrupted, being separated, being separate, what more can we do? The only thing we can do is realize the tactics that's being used, get ourselves out of that, understand the enemy and know the weapon is being used so we can sharpen our own swords. And then you go ahead and you face it head on with an even sharper sword. But you can't do that if you're ignorant to what's going on. You know what I'm saying? So now it says, you must also have you white servants and overseers distrust all blacks. It is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kids are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensely for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful of each other. So if we look at it, all of what I just spoke of right here is it's the background and the underlying meaning of why we as a people can't unite. One, we don't trust each other, we envy each other. We don't understand that the system that's been implemented, we run to the governing bodies and we run to the so-called powers that be, and we scream and we beg and we plead and we cry for help, and that's not their job. Because if you look at back in here, their job is to make sure that we trust, love, and respect only them. But their job is to never trust us. So why do we run to people who don't trust us? It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. But if we look at it, going further in the making of a slave. Now this is going like that's the end of the Willie Lynch letter, but we're going into the making of a slave. If we take it further, I'm gonna read from it says warning, possible interloping negatives. And this is why I said this all right here, I'm attacking the mind aspect. All this is about the mind. Because if we start seeing how these tactics are being used, we can start wrapping our mind about what's actually going on. Because a lot of people is emotional about the physical effects of it. But the physical effects automatically starts once you start implementing it right here. So if we attack the mind on it, then this will show you that these are the interloping negatives. It says, earlier we talked about the non-economic good of the horse and the nigger in their wild or natural state. We talked out the principle of breaking and tying them together for orderly production. Furthermore, we talked about paying particular attention to the female savage. Now, if you look at it, I'm gonna stop right here. The female savage. They're calling the female a savage in her natural state of being a natural being. You're considered a savage. That's why I tell people, if you look in the Bible, in the beginning, it said when Adam and Eve was in the garden, the serpent deceived them. This is showing you right then and there the implementation of why the serpent went to Eve first. Because if you attack the woman, because the woman is the natural nurturer, you give anything to a woman, she multiplies. So now if you take away the life force, you take away the creation of that life force, and you take away the whole creation. So they're looking at you in your natural state of being and freeness as a savage. And her offspring for orderly future planning. Then more recently we stated that by reversing the positions of the male and female savages. That's why if you look today, you got females that are more dominant in more dominant positions and are more masculine in far as the way of being and thinking than the males are today. You see males more feminine than ever. Skinny jeans, dyeing hair, wearing all kind of women's clothes, wanting to be transgenders now. That's all part of this systematic plan. And we are keep perpetuating that. We keep perpetuating it. So it said our expert warned us about the possibility of this phenomenon occurring, for they say that the mind has a strong drive to correct and recorrect itself over a period of time. If I can touch some over a period of time, if I can touch some substantial, original, historical base. That's why your story is not told. Because if your history is told about you, your mind is already correct itself from what's been implemented into you. So where the mind goes, the body follows. As a man thinketh, so is he. So if you understand your original aboriginal state, then everything that's done to you will have to be reversed. Once you get it reversed, now you're rebellious. You're back to your savage state. And the only reason you're a savage is because you are no longer under control. That's the only reason you're called a savage. But look at how many people want to be, oh, I'm a savage. Are you really? Are you really? Are you really a savage? Okay, if you're really a savage, who are you rebelling against? What's your natural state? Are you fighting for that? Oh, what you get? People want to call themselves a savage. What? Because you getting money? What? Because you dress fly? What? Because you out there thugging and bugging? You a savage? No. Because all it takes is one phone call and you doing what? 25 to life. Are you still a savage? Get that money, that flashing, get you out of this oppressed state that you've been in, that you've been blinded to, because you don't know who your original state is. You're not a savage, you're a puppet. To be a savage is understanding who you are. Because as soon as you understand who you are, it instantly reverses the effects that's been placed on you generations before and generations moving forward. Now that's a savage. A true savage knows how to get his freedom, not bite. So now let me keep moving forward. It said, I'm gonna read this again. It said, our experts warned us about the possibility of this phenomenon occurring, for they say that the mind has a strong drive to correct and recorrect itself over a period of time if I can touch some substantial, original, historical base. And they advised us that the best way to deal with the phenomena is to shave off the brute's mental history and create a multiplicity of phenomena of illusions, so that each illusion will twirl in its own orbit, something similar to floating balls in a vacuum. That's why I said the multifaceted limitations. Because what you think is real out here, it's not. It's not. Because your history has been stripped from you. So now look at how what they teach, like I said, as a child, you're born out of your mother's womb a slave. And you taught all the way not your history, but history. That has nothing to do with you. The only thing they want to teach you about in history is that you came over in boats and it changed. And I tell you that 9 times out of 10, you are already here. So now we keep pumping that out of you and pump that this is in you that gets you a nice job. Go ahead, pay $70,000 to $150,000 to get you a bachelor's, get you a master's. You know what? You so intelligent, get you a doctorate. Now you $300,000 in debt and wondering why you can't get no more than $10, $15 an hour. You owe Sally Mae and everybody their mom because you learned a system that was not of your own. You've learned a language that is not of your own. You've learned a culture that is not of your own. So if you're learning everything that's not of your own, everything about you is what? An illusion. And the more you keep fighting for it, the more of those floating balls in the vacuum keep twirling. You just get yourself deeper and deeper and deeper into an illusion that has nothing to do with you. The only thing it has to do with you is that you are the only one that is powering it. Because if you back out of this system what legs does it have to stand? Because if you look at it, the Aboriginals is the only one that to this day is believing in it. The ones who are so-called the powers that be, the only reason they believe in it because they're profiting from it. So as long as you believe in it, they gonna believe in it because who's getting the bigger slice of the pie? They are. They are. Definitely they are. So now the reason I said all about that mind portion is a lot of people don't realize that by keep pumping slavery into your head, that you came over here in chains, that you were whipped, beat, hung. They keep showing you roots. They keep showing you 12 years a slave. They keep showing women being raped and fondled in movies. They keep showing you how all these black women and black children, quote unquote black, are getting raped, murdered, kidnapped. They're showing you how all these policemen is killing, quote unquote, black men is because they know that where the mind goes, the body follows. So all it is adding more trauma. Adding more trauma. And with that slave mentality, because that is a slave mentality that's being pumped in you, it causes post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's continued through these present day spectacles of that. That's this post-traumatic stress disorder is a psychiatric disorder that can occur in people who have experienced or witnessed a traumatic event such as a natural disaster, a serious accident, a terrorist act, war or combat, rape or other violent personal assault. So every time they pump this in your television, pump it on your news feed on Facebook, put it all over in papers and whatnot, you are still suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. So when people talk about veterans, they coming back from the war and they suffer from all these mental issues. I used to say this all the time. We're getting PTSD in our backyard. We're still suffering from the effects of the war. Because just us being aboriginals and we not know that. We're walking every day as a walking target. We're looked at as another puppet. Which string to pull today? The more you don't know who you are, and somebody else knows you, then who has the control? It's definitely not you. It's definitely not you. Because if I see more in you than you see in yourself, then I can take the potential in you and move it how I want it to be. You don't know you got it. I do. So all I do is take that potential you don't know you have and make it beneficial for me. When all it takes is one word. Hey brother, hey sister, you know you can do this. But you can't do that when you've been pent against one another, not to trust one another. You don't want to see your brother or sister get ahead. You've been so much PTSD from the slave mentality of this Willie Lynch syndrome that they keep pumping into you that you cannot help your brother and sister. You rather envy them. That's envy. When all it takes is I see something in you. That's all it takes. You don't even got to go out of your way to bend your back or nothing. All you got to do is just say, I see something in you that you don't see in yourself. This is what you can do. This is the potential you have. This is a way that you can go. No, can't do that. When you're suffering from PTSD, still everything being pumped in you, let me see what I can get out of you. Let me see what I can get out of you. And then after a while, if I start moving and making a lot of major moves and you come along or somebody else come along and say, oh, he's doing it too big. Now I don't trust you. You envy me, so I don't trust you. We got a house divided right then and there, just two people. You take that over a whole continent. You take that over a whole planet. You got individuals in a whole planet Earth that can't see eye to eye to save their life. And literally, save their life. Can't see eye to eye. And it's crazy because if you look at it, the Haitian Revolution, 1804. The first quote-unquote black culture to fight for their freedom. All because they stood together and they all believed in one common goal and their spiritual faith. They don't tell you 1804 in your book. You know why? Because if you start learning how they did it, then we gonna do it too. We gonna end up doing it too. And that's what they feel. That's what, you hear I don't say white or Caucasian or European, because it's not about race. It's about power. You have people that is of the same melanin doing the same thing to you that those who don't have melanin. So it's not about the race, it's about the power. All it is if you, how much of this have you fed into? How deep are you gonna fall into that? How deep? Then once you realize that this ain't where you want to be, that this ain't where you supposed to be, and you start and your brain start recorrecting and redirecting itself. Now, oh, Houston, we got a problem. That's why you start seeing gun laws. That's why you start putting more black men get killed. That's why you start having more black women being raped and kidnapped. That's why you start seeing a lot of black men turning transgender. You take that masculine energy out of the community, who you got fighting? Nothing but the feminine. But they made you believe that the feminine is the weaker. I can give you one instance to show you that the feminine race is not weaker. They're equivalent, but we eat as the masculine and the feminine have two different roles, but it's of the same magnitude. If a woman is weaker, tell me one man is going to go through 40 weeks of labor, 40 weeks of pregnancy. Name one masculine energy that's going to lay up on a hospital bed and give life to another human and survive after it. Because every woman that gives birth passes death 7 times. Name one man that's going to do it. So who's the weaker? What? There's no way possible. Both male and female, masculine and feminine are equal, just opposite roles. One is the creator, one is the enforcer. That's all. But it's still same magnitude. So now, the reason I'm saying all this is because if you go through the effects of that PTSD, I tell everybody, your DNA is a USB. Your DNA is a memory stick. You still have memories from ancestors way back of the lineage that you came through. So when they tell you, oh, you need to just forget slavery, you need to just forget this. How? It's in my DNA. How am I going to forget it? And the more you keep pumping roots in my face, the more I'm going to remember it. The more I'm going to get pissed off. Because it activates every time you show that. You want this emotion out of me. But if I control the emotion and get the mental right, now that emotion that I want to start yelling out, I start putting some action behind it. Houston, we got a problem. I start doing some effective action. Effective. That I start doing my research. Okay, why you call me black? Why did you call me colored? Why did you call me Negro? Why do I want to consider myself African American? How come those indigenous people that we call Native Americans look like me? How come when I go through my lineage that I don't see nothing that says my great-great-great-great-grandfather was a slave? Why I say that my great-great-great-grandfather owned some land that I don't see now? Where did it go? Oh, this homestead? Oh, he had to give it away because you threatened? Okay, now we got some effective action to take. That's why I say to thine own self be true. How can you be true to thine self if you don't know who you are? And that's going inside and out. You got to go from here first. Here, your whole world, the whole world starts here. As a man thinketh, so is he. So now if you look at it, the more they keep putting these negative images in you, your DNA is storing all of that. Storing all of that. So now if you know that it's storing that, look at the Bible, and I'm going to keep referring to the Bible because this is a big tool that was used. But it says the sins of the father goes to the child. Now, you know when I said the quote at the beginning, the ill of man is the ignorance of God. And each religious and spiritual system tell you that it's the God within. So now if you know that the sins of the father goes to the child, the sins of the mother also goes to the child. Because a father, I just told you, a father can't give birth. So if you understand that the sins of the father and the ills of man is ignorance, then that means that not knowing that everything that you go through and implement into your mind alters your DNA, and that DNA get transferred right down to your seed. So if you was an alcoholic, what do you think your son gonna do? If you was a drug addict, what you think your daughter gonna do? If you was doing all this, that, and the third that got you in the positions that you were in a negative or malicious state, what do you think your child is gonna do? They was not around when you was doing this. But it's in your DNA because the way you thought at the time and you had that child. Those thoughts went in your DNA. Your DNA went in that child. Now that child's DNA is turned into that child's thoughts. So if I keep pumping slavery and keep pumping that you with this, that, and the third, your child is going to come out at birth not only being lost at sea and incompetent, not only being a number, an employee of US Inc., now mentally, before they can even speak a word, they're slave inside and out. Inside and out. And this baby can't even talk. All they can do is cry, drink milk, mess up a diaper, and go to sleep. And that child ain't got a chance. Don't even realize came in this world without a chance. That's why when they tell you born into sin, that's the sin. Ignorance. It's not what you do. People want to make it look like sin is an act. Sin is not an act. Because every act starts off with what? A thought. People say, oh, you gotta think before you act. You gotta think before you speak. Yes, people do. People do think before they speak and think before they act. Now, they might not think it thoroughly. You know what I'm saying? They might not think it thoroughly, but everybody thinks before they speak and think before they act. Because before I decided, put it like this, say if I want to go rob a bank, I'll go rob a bank. That was the thought. I thought I wanted to rob a bank. That's the thought. So I thought before I acted. I just want to go around everybody and just cuss them clean the hell out. I thought. Because my thought was I was going to call you everything except a child of God. That was my thought. So we do think before we speak. We do think before we act. So if you understand that principle, a child thinks before it's born. You just can't hear it. Because if a child didn't think before it was born, why would it know to cry to tell you that he needs something? That should tell you the mental capacity of a newborn. That even at the stage of coming out of the womb, it knows when it's hungry. Because it thought. Signals came to the mind. Mind said, look, body hungry. Now you know to come and change diaper. You know to come feed child. How would a child who can't talk know that? So if you understand that small principle, you already know that the sins of the father goes to the child. The sins of the mother goes to the child. But they always want to pump the negative. So if we look at it on this point, if the sins of the mother and father can go to the child, guess what the blessings can do also? They don't tell you speak life into your child. They say spare the rod, spoil it. But if I give life to my child gonna give me what? Life. So it's always about discipline, always about, well, we need to get you in line, we need to get you in order, we need to make you conform. No, why don't I make you be who you were born and destined and designed to be since your conception and inception into this universe? Why don't I speak life into you? Why don't I speak what you're supposed to be beyond what I am? Instead of passing down what I only limited to, I will pass you something that can help you exceed me. Why don't I do that? Why don't I do that? But see, that comes when you start taking self-accountability. When you take self-accountability, that makes you got to do what? Know yourself. And that always stems back from when you go all the way back. Nobody's going to tell you who you are. Nobody's going to tell you where you come from. And that's why when it comes, I tell people, I can't trust you, it's not your fault. You know why? I'm only exerting an external action because of how I feel about myself internally. If I don't trust you, there's no way possible I trust myself. There's no way possible. Just like it says in the Bible, love thy neighbor like you love thyself. If I don't love me, then the love I give you is an illusion. The love I give you is an illusion. So there's no way. If I don't trust you, there's no way in hell I can trust me. And if I say I love you and you can obviously I don't love me, leave me alone. Because I will be nothing but a detriment to your life. I'm going to be needy. I'm going to be wanting. I'm going to be begging. I'm going to be all codependent. I'm going to be at your heels. Oh, don't leave me, baby. You know, don't leave me. You better run. You better run. Shit. Tear your life out of frame. All right. But that's pretty much about the mental side of it. And we see how just off of the Willie Lynch syndrome alone, see, people don't want to go into deep depth about the Willie Lynch, but you have to look at even at the aspects of then till now. It's deeper than we can imagine. It's deeper. It's totally embedded. So now when you start looking at who you are and going back, you can easily start uprooting all. You can easily start uprooting. But now this is what we're finna get into now. I did the mind. Let's go into the spirit. And everybody knows that when you start coming in, oh my bad, if you can pass this to us. You sure? I forgot all about it. I'm sorry. Everybody knows about how they say Christianity was used as a tool to enslave mentally. This is still mentally. But now, if you know that it was used to enslave mentally, you're looking at a religious aspect. So now it going through your mental. Eyes are the window to the soul. The mind is the picture frame of the spirit. So now if you go to the spirit and you see that what you're being taught is framing that, now you got control on a whole deeper level. You got a system that's implemented that's telling you who you are now. It's not even nothing of the physical nature. It's something deeply embedded into your own subconscious, which is considered the spirit, into your conscious, which is your mind. So now you're looking at a deeper level. Like I said, all this is multifaceted. Multifaceted. Now, before Christianity was used as a tool here, you gotta look at it. There have been wars, when they say wars and rumors of war, it's been wars in religion since the beginning of time. Make no mistake. Every culture, and also I need to say this too, every culture, every race, every ethnicity was a slave. Everyone. They even white. Everybody was a slave. So I had to interject this because if we going for reparations, then that means Asians gotta get it. I mean white folk gotta get it. Black folk gotta get it. Hispanic gotta get it. Everybody gotta get reparations. We all were slaves. But if you look back, you hear a lot of people talk about Egypt. Egypt started the system of indentured servitude. Started the system. Because if you look at it, those who worked on the pyramids and all that, those were indentured servants. And it's crazy that people don't want to tell you that even the citizens at that time wanted to be an indentured servant for the Egyptians because the indentured servants were getting treated better than the actual citizens. Indentured servants had their own living quarters. They were fed properly. They were fed properly. Housed, clothed, treated with respect. So you tell me, what indentured servitude that Egypt had where you hear about them being hung? When you hear about them being murdered by the thousands? You don't hear none of that coming from that culture. You don't hear none of that coming from that so quote unquote African spirituality, that primordial. You don't hear none of that. You start hearing that when you go into the Arabic slave trade, the North Atlantic slave trade. You start hearing about the slaves that were brought to Santo Domingo, which is now Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and you got the French and Italy. You start hearing about that then. But when you go back to the primordial system, you don't hear none of that. You don't hear none of that. They were happy. They were taken care of. So now we understand that this slave trade been going on since the beginning, this indentured servitude. Let's talk about this Christian theology that was implemented. And this Christian theology that was implemented was all employed. Because, matter of fact, I'm gonna read it right here. I'm coming from, this book is called Unholy. Unholy. The Slave's Bible. Written by David Charles Mills. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start off talking about Emperor Constantine. Now, Emperor Constantine governed with Licinius until he became sole ruler in 323 to 324 AD. Now I'm gonna talk about this later on in the subject, but this here, Thoth. This is one, we're just consider that Thoth is the Greek term to who he is the Kemet term for. This book right here is 36,000 years old. Emperor Constantine came into power in 323 to 324 AD. And when they argue and tell you that Christianity does not have any Egyptian base, 36,000 years old. And that's not even the Book of the Dead. I got the Book of the Dead, but I ain't gonna break it, we be all night I do that. But it says Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea. Everybody know about the Nicene Council, where they started implementing on how Jesus is going to be praised and represented in Christian faith. Nicaea is considered the first ecumenical council of the Catholic. It's not even Christian. It's Catholic. So now you see how all, that's why I'm jumping ahead of myself. Let me go. It said, the council was called in response to the Arian doctrine. Aryan nation, where you have that supremacist nature. This is what it was in combat of a religion that was already in place. This wasn't even for to have a devout spiritual, a devout religion standpoint. It was about to be automatically in combat with another pre-standing religion. Another pre-standing, which among other things denied the divinity of Jesus Christ. There were other councils since the Council of Jerusalem in 50 AD, notably in Antioch, Alexandria, Smyrna, Arles, etc. Now, I'm gonna move forward. I'm gonna really move forward. Because this is what I think people really need to hear. Where did it go? Where did it go? Where did it go? Here you go. Now, people want to talk about the cross. Jesus died on the cross. Jesus died on the cross. Look how much this cross got implemented in your brain. On the warpath, Emperor Constantine had a vision of a flaming cross and the words, "By this conquer." So they said by that old rugged cross where I first saw the light. Yeah, the light you saw was flames. That's where all this is coming from. By this conquer. Most of Constantine's soldiers were pagans. Pagans. Pagan means, dope does not mean devil worshiping. Pagan means you do not follow under the Christian faith. That's all pagan means. Now, if Constantine's soldiers, all of them are pagans, what does that make Constantine? A pagan. A pagan. Because why would you be a Christian and have an army full of pagans that if you know what you believe is different from them and your army outnumbers you, all your army got to do is kill you? Why would me being a Christian, why would I have an army full of pagans knowing that I'm trying to persecute you because you don't believe what I believe, but I want you to fight for me? It don't work like that. So if my army is pagans, I'm a pagan too. That's why I said this cross, flaming cross, by this conquered. And most of Constantine's soldiers were pagans, yet they put the sign of the cross on their shields. That should tell you something. That should really tell you something. So now if we look at this, if you know that Emperor Constantine, the first thing that he was when he had this council in Nicaea, and you had this flaming cross, and the only thing about this, by this conquer, who are you conquering? Those who don't believe in what you believe in, but you already had substantial spirituality way before this. So now you fast forward it and you take it to 1619 in Virginia, and you make all these slaves that came from Africa, you make all these sharecroppers, indentured servitude, and all these prisoners of war, you make them deny their spirituality, but the way you get them to believe in your faith is you got to do what? Conquer. They conquered the slaves mentally. They conquered the sharecroppers by ripping their land off. And these prisoners of war, they conquered them by killing them. Now that's why you have a wide spread of Christianity. Now, this is where it's about to get deep. It's about to get deep. I'll pull a substantial amount of scriptures out of the Bible that really influences a lot of this. It really does. First scripture I'm going to go to is Genesis. It should be in y'all pack. It's going to be Genesis 15th chapter, 13th to 14th verse. Then the Lord said to Abram, this is Abram after he got transferred from, he first started off as Abraham. Abram is still Abraham. So it said, Abram, know certain that your descendants shall be aliens in a land not their own. This is what, and the reason I'm reading this is because this is what people want to say that 400 years of slavery was divinely ordained in the Bible. I don't know if you heard it. I know I've heard it plenty of times. They said that the Bible ordained slavery, that it had to happen. This is why I'm bringing this up. It said, then the Lord said to Abram, you know for certain that your descendants shall be aliens in a land not their own, where they shall be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. Now you see this 300 to 400 come right back. But I will bring judgment on the nation they must serve, and in the end they will depart with great wealth. Now, two things. If this was supposed to be the reason why we were enslaved, if they say that there'll be aliens in a land not their own, this promise cannot be for us, for the simple fact that we're already here. So how are we aliens in a land that we're already aborigines from? So if this promise was meant for slavery, was ordained in the Bible, how could this be possibly for us? Because if I told you after the Homestead Act is 160 acres was given to European immigrants. So if that's the case, then by this, slavery wasn't meant for us. It was actually meant for those immigrants, if that's the case, because they're the ones who are alien to this land. We're not. And then we're wondering why when it says, but I will bring judgment on the nation they must serve. And in the end, they will depart with great wealth. We still want to believe that slavery was meant for us, but who's the richest? You see how this has been transformed for us? We already aborigines to this continent, to this land. Before it was America, it's called Turtle Island. We are the aborigines here. So how are we obviously being under the impression that slavery was ordained in the Bible when it said you'll be aliens to your own land when you were already here before those immigrants that came over here, before those colonists came over here and settled. You were already here. So how was that meant for you? So now, if you take it on the flip side, okay, if it is meant for you, it said for 400 years, August 20th of 2019, which is Tuesday. If it's meant for you, if by the Bible, slavery was divinely ordained for you, the first slave was documented to come on this American soil, August 20th, 1619. 400 years is over. August 20th, 2019, which is Tuesday. What excuse do we have after that? What excuse do we have after that? We can't say, well, they doing this, they doing it. No. If the Bible ordained us to be slaves, 400 years is over. Next Tuesday. What excuse do we have now? Because this would destroy any kind of implication, or illusion that the Bible said we're supposed to be slaves. Okay, if that's the case, 400 years is over. This is the reason for this. 400 years is over. Next Tuesday. What is our excuse now? If we still feel like we're being held back, still feel like we're not getting our fair share, still waiting on Jesus to come back, still waiting for this, that, and the third, then what are our excuses? What is our excuse? Because now what that does is now, when you start really looking at it, and you feel like, oh, I was promised this, I was promised this. You were promised one thing, life and life more abundant. But you wasn't promised for life to be lived for you. You was promised life and life more abundant, not for your life to be lived for you. That's why it's always harping on without faith, without work. Faith without works is dead. You keep having faith all you want to. Keep sitting back. Keep hoping, wishing, and praying. And see what keep happening to you. See what keep happening. So now that's why I'm making major emphasis that 400 years is over. Next Tuesday, there should be no excuse. No excuse at all. If that's the case. If that is the case, there should be no excuse. Now to further go along on Exodus, 1st chapter, 8 through 14. Then a new king who knew nothing of Joseph came to power in Egypt. He said to his subjects, look how numerous and powerful the Israelite people are growing, more so than we ourselves. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them to stop their increase. Otherwise, in time of war, they too may join our enemies to fight against us and so leave our country. Don't that sound like what I just told you about Willie Lynch? He said we keep you unknown about your heritage and your culture, because the moment that you find out about your history, your mind will start redirecting itself and you start rising up against your oppressor. It's the same thing right here. But let's take it back a little bit further. Israelite. In this time, Israel was actually Palestine. So now they want to call this, they're saying that the children of Israel. Okay, children of Israel. That's Jacob, right? When Jacob fought, they said Jacob fought an angel. And I said, from this day forth, we're going to change your name to Israel. And he said, hey, now, hear me clear. I'm going to move forward, but I'm going to have to go back. But if you move forward to Galatians chapter 4, verses 8 through 9, 21 through 26. This is coming from Paul. Now, Paul, if you don't know about Paul was the one of persecuting Christians. So he went down to Damascus Road, had a flash of light, bam, that's why it suddenly changed. Now he for Christ. I guess. You know what I'm saying? But hear what he says right here. At a time when you did not know God, you became slaves to things by nature are not God's. But now that you have come to know God, or rather to be known by God, how can you turn back again to weak and destitute elemental powers? Do you want to be slaves to them all over again? Now here is slave talk. Now elemental powers. There's only 4 elements. Earth, wind, air, and fire. Now how can you look at this deceptive talk. How can you be a slave to something that you have dominion over? Even in the beginning of Genesis, the 1st chapter, they tell you have dominion over the fowl of the air, the fish of the sea, and every creature that crawls on the land. How all of a sudden now you are a slave to earth, wind, air, and fire, when in actuality those 4 elements make you human? So how can you be a slave of something that you are created of, that you have dominion and power over? Now what they're talking about, you became slave to things by nature are not gods. They're talking about the Egyptians. Back to the Egyptians. Because Egyptians never called themselves gods. They're called nature, which means nature. Nature. So anything that you see that says Osiris, Isis, Horus, Bastet, those are representations of the energies that are used in nature. They never, if you look at anyone, not one nature said praise them. Not one nature said worship them. Each nature said, I am in you. But they tell you don't look. They tell you don't look. Now they're making you believe that you're a slave to something that's already a part of you. Already in you. Because even if you look at it, and the reason I brought this, the Testament of Solomon, and the reason I brought this, because of this Testament of Solomon, it said when 2 women came up to Solomon and they had a baby. And each one of them said that this child is mine. Solomon had to make a bureaucratic decision. Okay, cool. This one said it is. Okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna split the baby in half. Y'all take the both. You take a part, you take it. The actual mother said no, let her have it. Solomon gave the baby to the woman who said that, because you can tell off of that response, you're the mother. God came to Solomon and said, because of you acting in this manner, I will grant you your desire. Solomon asked for wisdom. He said, because of thee asking for wisdom, I will give you my seal. If you go all the way back to the Kabbalah, the Kabbalion, and everything else, the seal was this: 5-point star in the sun, the pentagram. What the pentagram represents is earth, wind, air, fire, is spirit. Because the spirit always leads back up to God. That was his seal. To knowing that that's the 5 things that man is created of: earth, wind, air, fire, and spirit. That's why when you had Da Vinci paint his Vitruvian Man, in the same position as the seal of God, which is King Solomon's pentagram. So how are you a slave to what you're made of that you have dominion over? How? How? So now we're going to keep moving forward. For it is written that Abraham had 2 sons, one by the slave woman and the other by the freeborn woman. The son of the slave woman was born naturally. The son of the freeborn through a promise. Now this is an allegory. An allegory is this, and I'm going to explain that. An allegory, a story, poem, or picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political one. And its synonyms are parable, analogy, metaphor, symbol, emblem, tale, myth, legend, saga, or apologue. So now, if they're telling you this, that Abraham having 2 sons, one by Hagar, and one by Sarah, is an allegory, what did I tell you? It's not real. It's not real. So now, if you realize that the story in Galatians 4, starting off at the 21st verse, tell you that this is an allegory. If Abraham is an allegory, what does that mean? Abraham is not real. So if Abraham is not real, then what? Isaac's not real. Then if Isaac's not real, then who's what? Jacob's not real. And if Jacob's not real, then that means what? Israel is not real. And if Israel is not real, then what? The 12 tribes are not real. Then if the 12 tribes are not real, you go all the way down to who's not real then? Jesus. That tells you that David ain't real. King Solomon ain't real. All this is allegory. All of it, allegory. That's why even in the Kabbalah, it tells you you'd be a fool to think that the scriptures is not written in double meaning. Because the Kabbalah is only written by the Gnostic Hebrews that separated from the Christian Hebrews when they started canonizing the Bible. The Gnostic Hebrews were the ones who dealt in the mystery. Would you go back into the studies of Egyptology that they call it today, which is the study of Kemet. And I can go back in here and show you that every person that had benefited in implementing anything or putting any information in the Bible first did one thing: went to Egypt to study. Every last one of them went to Egypt to study. And it even shows you in your Bible. If Egypt was such of this monstrous slave-mongering master, why would Moses go back? And in any case, why would Jesus go back? If they're so horrendous. Then that should give you the same implementation, like when you say when the slaves were free and you ask why they go back. There you go. There you go. There you definitely go. Now, let me go back to this. Back to Exodus, 1st chapter, 8 through 14 verse. Now, we already talked about the allegory, so let me go ahead. It said, then a new king who knew nothing of Joseph came to power in Egypt. He said to his subjects, look how numerous and powerful the Israelite people are growing, more so than we ourselves. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them to stop their increase. Otherwise, in time of war, they too may join our enemy to fight against us, and so leave our country. Accordingly, taskmasters were set over the Israelites to oppress them with forced labor. Then I go right back to what I was saying about you have to have white servants as overseers to make sure that the slaves love, trust, and obey only them. You see the parallel. So say, yet the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. The Egyptians then dreaded the Israelites and reduced them to cruel slavery, making life bitter for them with hard work in mortar and brick and all kinds of field work. The whole cruel fate of slaves. So now we already understanding that the actual people of Israel is not real, then who is the actual Egyptian that they're putting in their place? Who is the actual Israelite that's being enslaved? Who is the actual Egyptian? You see what I'm saying? So this is why I'm saying, looking at these, you got to really think of, like, if you have this letter that's so-called fictitious, but it's also mimicking what I'm reading right here, and you can also see the results of it, it should start to make you think who is who and what is what. Now let's go to Galatians, first chapter 6 through 10 first. It says, I am amazed that you are so quickly forsaking the one who called you by the grace of Christ for a different gospel. Not that there is another, but there are some who are disturbing you and wish to pervert the gospel of Christ. But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel other than the one that we preach to you, let that one be accursed. I gotta stop right here. This is a lot of audacity right here. Because if it tells you that Christ came back in human form, that he was already up, that if they say that in the beginning was the Word was God, the Word was with God, and the world knew him not, right? And you say that Jesus was formed in the flesh of man, that you already know he's coming from that spiritual realm. So that all should tell you that the heavenly realm is already powerful and endowed and all-knowing, right? What would make Paul say that, but even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel other than the one that we preach to you, let that one be accursed? What makes you feel that you have that much authority and audacity to tell us a heavenly host, that if a heavenly host came down and said that this is what you should be believing, you deny a heavenly host and tell them that they're cursed? What kind of power is that in a man? That should tell you what? Something wrong with him. Something is wrong with him if you feel that you got that much power. Because if that's the case, what did Lucifer, they want to say if Lucifer is the devil and Satan, I'll give you that another subject. But they say that Lucifer, the reason Lucifer failed is because he did not want to bow down to man, because he asked, who is thee such a man that I'm to bow down to? Because of that ego is the reason why Lucifer failed. Because of this ego right here, Paul's saying, even if a heavenly host come down and tell you something different, that heavenly host is cursed. Believe what I tell you. Who's the devil? If there's nothing new under the sun, if there's nothing new under the sun, if the devil fall because they don't want to bow to man, then would that make you mean that Paul telling men that you're going to rise because who is the heavenly host that you should obey? Paul just called a heavenly host cursed if they tell you something different. Ain't that the same thing as the devil telling you, why should I bow down to man? Who is he that I should bow down to? You know what I'm saying? So now, it says, as we have said before, and now I say again, if anyone preaches to you a gospel other than the one that you received, let that one be accursed. I am now currying the favor with human beings or God? Or am I seeking to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a slave of Christ. Now, one time did it say Jesus in there. Because if we look through history, there was way more than one Christ besides Jesus. Way more. So it said, I wouldn't be a slave of Christ. Not one time do you hear Jesus in any of this. So now if you know that Christ only means Savior. Christ was only coming into play into, if I'm not mistaken, between the 15th and 17th century. Before there was Christ, there was Messiah, Mashiach. That was 13th century, which also meant Savior. But the Mashiach was more of a personal level than Christ, because now if you start bringing in Christ, as I told you that those who came from Egypt to learn with those Gnostic Hebrews, Christ was Christ consciousness, that you have that higher self of learning how to save yourself. That's why if you look at even a lot of the disciples called Jesus not master. They didn't call him Savior. They called him what? Teacher. Teacher. They called him Rabbi. That's why. He wasn't here to save you. And if he was here to save you, like I said, the original sin is not of what you do. It's the ignorance of it. So if Jesus is a master teacher, and Christ is the Christ consciousness to help you save yourself, what did he save you from? Ignorance. That's why I said it. But that's why I always tell you, faith without works is what? Dead. So if you have faith and not working, that means you lack the intelligence to know how to put that faith in action. So now you have somebody that died for your sins. You can ask anybody that it's still up to question about Jesus dying on the cross. But you have to realize, if you out, and I'm going to that, well, I know I'm skipping so far ahead of myself. Hold on, because it's up here. Oh boy, hold on, where it goes. I'm gonna go back to it. It's gonna come to me. But just keep that note when it said Jesus died on the cross. Just remember that. Now let's go to Galatians 3rd chapter, 1 through 22nd, first verse through 22nd. It says, this is Paul talking to the Galatians now. Oh, stupid Galatians. You call me stupid, I ain't listening to you off top. I ain't listening off top. I am not listening. But it says, oh, stupid Galatians, who has bewitched you, before whose eyes Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified. Now that's in question. Even Paul is questioning that. Who has bewitched you, before whose eyes Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified? I want to learn only this from you. Did you receive the Spirit from works of the law? Now when they talk about law, they talk about the Mosaic law, where it's still going from the Jewish law. But I'm going to talk about that. That's why I brought my Kabbalah, because it's only one law that stands, that's been standing since the test of time. That's the Hermetic law. That's coming through the Kabbalah, the 7 laws of the universe. And just to give you a quick instance about that, the 7 laws of the universe is the law of mentalism, which is the all is mind. The universe is mental. Correspondence, as above, so below. Vibration, nothing rests. Everything moves, everything vibrates. Polarity, everything is dual. Everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. The law of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The law of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. And the last law is the law of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. All planes. That means physical, spiritual, even multidimensional if you want to go into that depth. So now if you understand that even on this principle, this law right here, when a lot of people want to argue how the birth of Jesus defies all laws of physics and laws of man, it even defies the laws of the universe. Because gender is manifest on all planes. So how can you have a spirit give birth to flesh? How? That denies all laws on every plane, from universal to even physical. That denies every law. Common sense got to kick in at some point. So now, that's the original law. When it said in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, these existed at that point. Before heaven and earth was created, those laws existed. Because if God is everything and everything is God, that means these laws is God. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, and the world knew him not. That's the law. It was here in place before anything. So now you got Jewish law, Mosaic law, all these laws that actually those laws even stem from the laws of Mayat. Because even the laws of Mayat stem from these 7 laws. You know what I'm saying? Because if you look at it, when Moses went up to the mountain, who was Moses talking to bring down 10 commandments? Who was he talking to? Now they want to tell you that you're crazy. Think about it. They want to tell you that you're crazy. When you start meditating and you say the Spirit told me this, the Spirit told me that. Oh, you losing your mind. Well then hell, Moses lost his too. Moses lost his mind too. Because who was he talking to in the clouds? If I can't hear the Spirit nowadays and I'm crazy, then that means Moses was too. If I'm put like this, if they want to say that you're a devil worshiper, if you can see into things this and the third, then that means Joseph was too. Technically, dream code. So you gonna believe another man because of his dream, but you can't believe mine? And it saved the kingdom. It saved the empire. So if we're crazy, that means Joseph crazy. Daniel in the lion's den, that man who saw Jesus in the fire with him is crazy. Moses on the mountain talking to God, getting 10 commandments is crazy. Because it said there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new under the sun. You see what I'm saying? So now let's keep moving forward. It says, "O stupid Galatians, who has bewitched you, before whose eyes Jesus Christ was publicly betrayed as crucified? I want to learn only this from you. Did you receive the Spirit from works of the law, or from faith in what you heard? Are you so stupid?" How many more times you gonna call me stupid? Ain't gonna be too much more. After beginning with the Spirit, are you now ending with the... After beginning with the Spirit, are you now ending with the flesh? You gotta take that in all facets. Did you experience so many things in vain? Even if indeed it was in vain. Does then the one who supplies the Spirit to you and works mighty deeds among you do so from works of the law or from faith in what you heard? You know, other people are talking about you living off grandma's prayer. Then you go right around the church and tell them try them for yourself. Well, that's all I'm doing now. It's like, don't go for what you heard. This is what breaking the chains means. Break these chains off. Stop going by what you was told. Stop going by what you heard. Try them for yourself. And you can tell. And we say you can tell the tree by the fruits it bears. If we've been trying this tree for how long, and I got to come here today talk about 400 years and break the chains, what fruit have it bore for us? It ain't brought us no fruit. And even says in the Bible, if it ain't bore you no fruit, then what the hell are we doing? You know what I'm saying? So are you going by the one who supplies the Spirit, which is the all, the Most High? That's why we say that's why he said, greater is he that is in me. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. So why we keep listening to he that is in the world when greater is he that is in me? That's why they got to put you against your brother and sister. I can't trust you, you can't trust me. Because you don't trust yourself. You don't even trust the God within you, let alone the flesh about you. So even Paul tells you, it says, then the one who supplies the Spirit to you and works mighty deeds among you, do so from works of the law or from faith in what you heard. And then, but he go right around and say, faith comes by hearing, not by sight. But then go right around and tell you that the works that you've done, that you've seen. You see what I'm saying? So it said, thus Abraham believed God, and it was accredited to him as righteousness. Now even Abraham believed God. Believed God. Jesus wasn't even around. And the reason I'm putting emphasis on that is because Like I say, Jesus even said, things I have done, ye can do also, and more. And more. Now realize then that it is those who have faith who are children of Abraham. Scripture which saw in advance that God would justify the Gentiles by faith. Gentiles is considered anyone who wasn't a child of Israel, wasn't an Israelite. Foretold the good news to Abraham, saying, through you shall all the nations be blessed. Consequently, those who have faith are blessed, along with Abraham, who had faith. For all who depend on works of the law are under a curse. For it is written, cursed be everyone who does not persevere in doing all the things written in the book of the law. So now, if you go towards the New Testament, they tell you that even Jesus said, I did not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. But right here, you have him saying that you're cursed under that law. You're cursed. So that means that the whole time that you've been going under that law, you've been cursed since day one. But here's the reason why it's not only because of the law. Paul even goes a little bit further. It says, and that no one is justified before God by the law is clear. For the one who is righteous by faith will live. But the law does not depend on faith. The one who does these things will live by them. Christ ransomed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. By becoming a curse. Now we all know that it say speaking into existence. So now if you're proclaiming that Christ became a curse and you've been believing on him as what? A curse. For it is written, cursed be everyone who true. And he said nothing about a cross. And he said nothing about a cross. Cursed be the one who hangs on a tree. So now if you're wondering why you keep looking at yourself, everybody keep looking at us, oh, they keep pumping in your head about, oh, we was hung, we was lynched, we was this, that, and third. That's why they look at you in that such way. So now this saying, cursed be the man that hung from a tree. At the very least, if Jesus was the one who became a curse for us, and he was one that hung by a tree, at any rate, who is Jesus? You. At the literalist tense, cursed be the man who hangs by a tree. And Jesus we was ransomed for Jesus to become the curse and was hung on a tree. How many times we get pumped in our head that we've been lynched, burned, at the stake, tarred and feathered, whipped, lynched, and they calling our black skin cursed. Then if that's the case, then who are we? In the same right with Jesus. In the same right. Now here it is. It gets even more. He said, brothers, in human terms, I say that no one can annul or amend even a human will once ratified. Now the promises were made to Abraham and to his descendant. Now this got to stand clear. To his descendant. Even Paul says this, and that's what I was saying earlier. It does not say, and to his descendants, as referring to many, but as referring to one. And to your descendant, who is Christ. So that means to tell you that people talking about the children of Abraham. That even shows you that even if you do go through that ideology that was meant to become a slavery, you still wouldn't be guaranteed the promise. Because you are a descendant. It means one, not descendants, because you've gone through a lineage if that would be the case. And he even said that the descendant that is being spoken of is Christ. So you don't even have any right to the promise either. If you still believe in this 400-year system. You don't even have a price. You don't even have it. So it's like, this is what I mean, the law, which came 430 years afterward, does not annul a covenant previously ratified by God, so as to cancel the promise. For if the inheritance comes from the law, it is no longer from a promise, but God bestowed it on Abraham through a promise. So it's saying outside of the law. Outside of the law. This promise that was given to Abraham saying that your descendant will make you the father of many nations and your descendant will receive the reward. Now they're saying that no law can nullify what God promised. So if God promised that the reward is going to his descendant and his descendant is Christ, that excludes everybody out of it. The only one to get it is Christ. It's not you. But then this is the catch on it. Why then the law? It was added for transgressions. When we talk about the actions of sin, but we know the original sin is ignorance. It was added for transgressions. Because if you go back, like I said, even before Constantine had the Nicene Council, you had those of the Christian Lutheran and Christian faith were selling indulgences. That's how they created the Basilica of St. Peter. That these indulgences, that if you sinned, you give us $1 amount. We give you a receipt saying your sin has been forgiven. Through the indulgence system. And through selling so many indulgences, St. Peter's Basilica is one of the beautiful temples you still see standing today. So now they're telling you right here, why then the law? It was added for transgressions until the descendant came to whom the promise had been made. This is all a setup. This is all a setup. It was promulgated by angels at the hand of a mediator. You hear all this legal terminology they're using? It make it kind of wonder how you're using a lot of this legal terms in this doctrine. It was promulgated by angels at the hand of a mediator. Now there is no mediator when only one party is involved, and God is one. Is the law then opposed to the promise of God? Of course not. It's telling you that the law has no stake now. The promise is still under Abraham about the descendant, not you, but unto Christ the descendant. For if a law had been given that could bring life, then righteousness would confine all things under the power of sin. That through faith in Jesus Christ, the promise might be given to those who believe. You hear that? For if a law had been given that could bring life, then righteousness would confine all things under the power of sin. So if the law could bring life, then the law would stand. But since law can't bring life, what they did is confine all things under the power of sin. That only through the faith in Jesus Christ, the promise might be given to those who believe. So now you have been given the implementation of sin, that knowing that this promise is not meant for you, only through Jesus. When we just told you that Abraham was an allegory, that none of this was real. So now for you to believe in Jesus, you are now guaranteed a promise because you believe. Believe in what? Believe in what? You believe that your sins is forgiven because Jesus died for you and you got heritage to the promise. Okay. Your sins are forgiven, right? As a kid, you do something wrong, you got whooped, didn't you? Thought my sins supposed to be forgiven. So now you go out there and steal a car, police catch you. Go to jail, don't you? I thought your sins were supposed to be forgiven. So you got to ask yourself, what law are you under? Because now if you live by it says by the law. So by the law you are granted no right. So now if you live by the letter of the law, then that means obviously you don't believe in Christ. You can't. Because you're still living under the law. Now you can say that could be the Jewish law, Hebrew law, but these laws are still stem from them. It's like I said, the Jewish law stem from the Ma'at. The laws of Ma'at stem from the universal law. So if you look at all these laws that have been passed down, even the law of man, still comes from the Hebrew Judaic law, Mosaic law. So now if you follow by the laws of man, then how can you believe? What promise are you looking for? The promised land? Or the promise of God? Which promise are you looking for? You see the dichotomy in it. Everything, like I said, law prepared, everything is doable. Everything is doable. So now I got two more. Let's go to Hebrews 1st chapter 1 through 2nd verse. It says, in times past, God spoke in partial and various ways to our ancestors through prophets. Now, I had to stop on that because it tell you right then and there. If God, in times past, God spoke in partial and various ways to our ancestors through prophets. So if that's the case, let's take it on the whole spectrum. They say Elijah Muhammad is a prophet. Why discredit him? If you say the book of Enoch, that's not even in the Bible. Enoch was a prophet. Why discredit him? If you go into the system of Santeria and Egypt, you got a ruler. That's the Orisha of the Vedic prophet. Why discredit him? You have a Legba in your room. You have Legba in Vodou. The road open, bringing the way. Ancestor. Why discredit them? You have, like I said, right here. To who? The one who was spoke of in the book of the dead is one who gave birth to himself. That also comes through as Hermes Trismegistus. It also comes in as the Greek god Hermes. It also comes in as Enoch. It also is a transducent of King Solomon. If you got all this, why discredit him? If you say in past time God spoke in partial in various ways to our ancestors through the prophets, then why do we consider our ancestors the devil? Why? Why would you even consider your ancestor to be the devil if it tells you right here, Hebrews chapter 1, verse 1. In times past, God spoke in partial in various ways to our ancestors through the prophets. In these last days, he spoke to us through a son. Didn't even say Jesus again. Through a son. Don't that make you a child of God too? So if that's the case, if you didn't specify Jesus, that means he's speaking through you too. God is speaking through you right now. But we waiting on Jesus' return. Whom he made heir of all things, through whom he created the universe. Now I want to start right there. I gotta bring my Bible out on this. Because this is right here, you gotta listen to it. Now, like I said, if Constantine, when he had his army, and he went out conquering to uphold the Nicene Council, that all of his army was pagans, and the first thing he saw was a flaming cross that said, by this conquer. By this conquer. You have to understand that Constantine was a pagan too. Constantine believed in the sun just like everybody else. And the reason I brought up King Solomon, once again, like I talked about the pentagram being the seal of God, break down the word Solomon. You have Sol, S-O-L, O, and Mon, M-O-N. Sol is the sun. O, now O people think it's of. No. The O means aim, which is Latin for eye. Mon means man. So you have sun, eye, man. In the eye is the most melanin in one confined spot. That when you look directly at the sun, 99.9% of the UV rays are distributed equally into the melanated body. So now if you got Solomon, meaning sun, eye, man, in every picture, what do you see? If you go back to Egyptology, what do you see? Akhenaten doing this. Sun and the rays going to his eye. Man. That's why they consider Akhenaten the author of monotheism. All points back. All points back. Everything points back. So now, if we say that through a son, now, we look at, let's take like this, because you got the amen and the aten. Of course, I said Akhenaten. Son, amen. Akhenaten, aten, meaning is the son. But amen does not mean so it be. Shall it is, shall it was. It doesn't mean that. Amen means what is hidden. That's what amen means. What is hidden. So when you start saying amen, that's the last name of Amen, Tutankhamun, which is Akhenaten's son. Before Akhenaten passed away, they had Tutankhamun. That he had counselors because he was so young. He had to get advisors. They advised him to go back to the Amen faith. And that's the reason why Amen was still ruling after Akhenaten's death. But even before Akhenaten became Aten, he was Amen too. Now look at this, the story of Akhenaten. He grew up with, I think it's King Thutmose, if I'm not mistaken, and his mother. He was ostracized because he believed different. To the point to where that when Akhenaten grew older and became pharaoh, that's when you have Amarna, the kingdom of Amarna. That's Akhenaten's kingdom when he became ruler. What he did is that because he was ostracized so much by his family and by his friends and counterparts, he took the whole kingdom of Egypt, brought it to Amarna, and bankrupted Egypt. The reason why is because he changed the Amen to the Aten. So those in Egypt could not sell no more Amen paraphernalia. But they tell you salvation is free. So now the paraphernalia that was sold off the Amen faith was supplying Egypt. But when Akhenaten became pharaoh, his kingdom flourished. To the point to where that those surrounding areas tried to invade and attack because he would not do business with them. Egypt begged for Akhenaten to bring his kingdom back. He refuted every message. Until I still believe to this day that Akhenaten was poisoned because of such. But look at it. Look at it today. How is, when I told you Christianity is surviving? First, through indulgences. Now, what they call it now, the indulgences changed to what? Tithes and offerings. Now you go from tithes and offerings to now what? Paraphernalia. You see all these, what would Jesus do, wristbands? You see all these, this Bible right here. And I had to get a new American just for this call, just because, you know what I'm saying? $50. $50. For the word. And the crazy thing about it is that they call this the living word. Have one word out this book jumped out and walked towards you. Then that means who's the living word? You. It gotta be you. Because if it's not you, if it say in the beginning was the word was God, the word was with God, and the world knew him not. Then you say greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. If he is the word and he is in you, then who is the word? The living word. You. But they take all references off of you and put it outside of you so you can love a master. And envy and distrust your fellow brother and sister. This is, I'm telling you, it's all on many facets. All on many facets. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because it said he spoke to us through a son whom he made heir of all things, through whom he created the universe. Now, if you go to Genesis 1st chapter 1 through 5th verse, it says, in the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth, and darkness covered the abyss, while a mighty wind swept over the waters. Then God said, let there be light. And there was light. God saw how good the light was. God then separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. Thus the evening came, and morning followed the first day. Where did the word day come from? Where did the word sun, moon, where did the word light come from? Where did the word darkness come from? Because if you look at it, this is all words that is used in common life. So now if you don't understand that these words that are used in modern time, how can they tell you that God said let there be light if words didn't exist? If words didn't exist, how can they tell you God said anything? And two, how can God say let there be light when God is light? So what that means is if God is all what it is in the primordial chaos, which the chaos only mean the darkness is the carbon in the universe, with the carbon in the universe is the melanin of you. Through that darkness of himself, he pulled the light out. He didn't have to say it was him. So now people want to make you believe that because of your dark, you're cursed, just like the son of Noah cursed with the black skin. Man, get that out of here. Because only through the darkness did the light come. The darkness that's in your melanin is the same carbon in the universe that is made of the Most High that pulled the light out of himself. Didn't have to say nothing. God is. That's what he said. I am the great I am. If I am, I ain't got to say nothing. It is. Just like that. Now, if it tells you that he spoke to us through a son, whom he made heir of all things, through whom he created the universe. Now, if this says through whom he created the universe, now you want to give implication that this son they're speaking of for references is Jesus, right? It said God created the heaven and the earth, right? And when he said let there be light, and light was formed, ain't that the first thing that started off everything that went? Because if heaven and earth was created, you couldn't see it. But it said God created that. Then it said, let there be light, and there was light. Who was the name? They call Jesus the bright morning star, right? Who is else considered the bright morning star? Lucifer. So who is Jesus and who is the devil? Who is Jesus? That's what I'm saying. When people talk about Lucifer, Lucifer is not the devil. The devil that people is looking at today with the red horns and the dragon's tail, that is a created devil called Refuge. That means the darkness bearer. Lucifer has no depiction of horns being red with a dragon's. That sounds like Schoolhouse Rocky on Saturday morning. Lucifer is considered the light bearer, the enlightened one, the bright morning star, the same thing that they call Jesus. So now you say if God created the heavens and the earth, he said let there be light. Who was the first thing created before man? Lucifer. And if that's the case, God saw how good the light was. So we got to start looking at, I'm not trying to say Lucifer and Jesus. I'm not trying to turn nobody Luciferian. That ain't what I'm doing. I'm trying to show you how this duality has got people's minds twisted. Because Satan ain't no devil either. The word Satan didn't come into play until the 15th century, which is a Latin word that means one that is sent by God to oppose. It didn't say oppose what? So now if you see this construct that is killing us, tearing us out the frame, and I oppose it, that makes me what? Satan. All because I do not go along with what you want. I'm Satan. Anybody in this day and time can be Satan. But when you think about it, the definition of Satan says what? One who is sent by God to oppose. So now, if you want to be afraid of Satan, why? If they tell you all things work together for thine good for those who are called according to his will and purpose, why would you be afraid of Satan and God sent him? And that goes back to, you keep these niggas in line with fear, distrust, and evil. That's why you keep calling your ancestors devil. That's why when you start doing Ifa and Vodun and working with the Netcha and working with Santeria, you call that devil worshiping. Because you don't know who the enemy is. You don't know who Satan is. You don't know who the devil is. And if you want to consider Lucifer the devil, didn't God say, good and evil I made both? Good and evil I made both. So that means if good and evil is, if he made both, that means good and evil was in God, right? So now if you're made in his image, that means good and evil is where too? In you. So the only reason why you can recognize evil outside of you is because you can recognize it within you. That's the only reason. Because if you cannot recognize evil within you, what is evil? Now this is really gonna throw you, this is really gonna mess your mind up now. And I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna go to some quotes that I got from the Emerald Tablet. When I do this, we'll be done. But this is gonna mess you up. Now if I tell you that you already see the duality of Lucifer and Jesus both being called the bringers of light, but you want to call Jesus the Savior, but you want to call Lucifer the devil, you already put that split on the true light. Now, if that's the case, and I tell you that the original sin is ignorance, and you all know that we are made in the image of God, right? The command was given to Adam to tell Eve, do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for the moment you do, you shall surely die. That should tell you one, that should throw up a red flag right there. If the original sin is ignorance, and he told Adam, do not eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for the moment you do, you shall surely die. 2 parts on that. Anything of the flesh is going to die anyway. It's going to die anyway. There's nothing of flesh that is a conundrum. Anything that is of flesh is going to die. It has everything that is of anything carnal has an expiration date. There's no getting around it. You show me some bones of Methuselah and carbon 14 day it. Not one bone of Methuselah has been found, but he lived what, 960 something years. Show me. If you can dig up Lilith, or you can dig up what's the old girl name they found in Africa that's 1 million years old? Lucy. You can find Lucy. You can't find Methuselah? Show me some proof. You can show me proof that the first inhabitant was a woman. You can show me that the first inhabitant was a melanated being, but you can't show me the first inhabitant that lived 1,000 years? Why am I supposed to believe that when all of my ancestors telling me that already what you prove with science? And I knew I was an Aborigine. It took your science for you to believe it. I didn't need it. So you prove that. How come you can't prove this? Not one artifact, not one piece of trace of whatever. Can you prove that Yahshua, which is his Hebrew name of Jesus, ever existed? Do you know it's a law right now that if anyone claims to be Jesus, they are sent into a mental institute. They are sent into a mental institute. Why? When they tell you that greater is he that is in me. So if they say Jesus, if you've seen me, you've also seen the Father. So that means that's one and the same, right? And they tell me if greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. If I can say that and I'm made in his image, why can't I not say that? But if I say that I'm in a padded room hugging myself now, that should tell you something. That should really tell you something. Now you move on a little further. You say the serpent is the great deceiver of old. And Eve was looking at the tree. And the serpent came down and said, I see you look at it. And Eve told the serpent, he said, I was instructed that I shall not eat of this tree. For the moment I eat of this tree, I shall surely die. The serpent said, no you won't. You're just afraid that if you eat of this fruit, you'll be as like-minded as God. Now, keep this. That's another duality. Because the serpent did tell her the truth, but not the whole truth. The serpent told her, see, you looking at you. When in their mind they're looking at, thou shalt surely die. That means on the instant they drop dead. The serpent said, no, you won't. No, you won't. And after Eve ate the fruit, then she died. She kept on living until she got put out of the garden, had babies, wept over Adam's death until she went back to glory herself. And they said in the book of Adam, they said that she lived 700 years. Is that surely dying? Is that surely dying? Eve lived to 700 years. Did she surely die? She died surely. She died surely, but did she surely die? So now, Eve ate of the fruit and gave it to Adam, which I always say that you can't say woman is the downfall of man. You can't say that. Because the whole time that the serpent was deceiving Eve, Adam was standing right next to her. If the instruction was given to Adam, why you didn't say something right then and there? Obviously what the serpent was saying was getting good to you too. Because you ain't open your mouth not one time. Even so much, it must have been so good that when Eve turned here, let me get a bite of that. Now both of them, when they ate, their eyes were open. And they realized that they were naked and ashamed. And they hid when they started hearing the voice of God. Look at how you do that today. On so many levels. Who is the God you serve? Because after God got finished talking to Adam and Eve, and Adam blamed Eve and this, that, and the third, God clothed them and he said, look, they are one of us now. No. You just told me in the beginning I'm made in your image. But don't eat of that. So when I eat of that, and you talk to your heavenly host and say, oh, now look, they're one. What was your plan? What was your plan? Because if they tell you that the people perish from the lack of knowledge, me not eating that fruit, ain't that lack of knowledge? So what did you want in the beginning? And who God are you? Who God are you? Because this ain't the God that I know of. This ain't no. If that's the case, I don't want that God. Because that God wanted me ignorant. They wanted me the lack of knowledge. So soon all then after, I perish still. Even if you didn't eat of the fruit, it says lack of people perish from the lack of knowledge. So with the lack of that knowledge of the tree of good and evil, you're still gonna perish. So who God are you? Who created you? Because this can't be the one I know of that was here before all time. Because the God that's here of all time, like I said, doesn't speak nothing. He just is, right? All things good and evil, he created both, right? So that means if he created both, God does not care if you live or die. God does not love you. God does not hate you. God is. So why would God have an agenda like that? Who God are you? Then you gotta look at the serpent. Now the serpent comes in and gives you this fruit and this knowledge. Is the serpent actually the deceiver of old, or the one that frees you from bondage? That's what I said. If you look at the duality, is the serpent the really one that deceives you, or the one that freed you from bondage? Because now, even after you ate the fruit, he said to his heavenly host, look, they are of us now. Now you know the one thing that became wrong out of this whole situation is two things that you don't see in the Bible that we need to start telling one another today. When God created man, he said, I see and it is good. He said. Not one time did you hear in the Bible say that God said that to us. Now one time did God tell any of those of mankind that he made that I made you good. That affirmation and that confirmation. So the whole time man is walking around just being, not really knowing that they're already good. So that's why when you get this little knowledge that is not of self, you start getting outside knowledge. You start looking at yourself. They said they became ashamed because they were naked. Why are you ashamed of something that God said was made good? And you hid. You hid. That's why I say the true reason is that you have to learn self. You have to know self. Because if you start getting knowledge outside of self that is not of you, you start becoming ashamed of who you are. And you want to hide the bare naked truth of you. Hiding from God. When you can't hide when God is right. And that's going to take me right on into this. These are little inserts from the book, from the Emerald Tablet of Thoth the Atlantic. It says, "O men." Now remind you when I tell you this is the book, this is the Emerald Tablet. Like I said, it's 36 Bible. The one that we have, the canonized Bible right now that we have, was canonized in 376 AD by the Nicene Council. This book is 36,000 years old, and that's just the date. That's just the date. So it says right here, it says, "O men, listen to the voice of wisdom. Listen to the voice of light. Mysteries there are in the cosmos that unveiled fill the world with their light. Let he who would be free from the bonds of darkness first divine material from the immaterial, the fire from the earth. For know ye that as earth descends to earth, so also fire ascends unto fire and becomes one with fire. He who knows the fire that is within himself shall ascend unto the eternal fire and dwell in it eternally. Remember, O man, that all which exists is only another form of that which exists not, the seen and the unseen. Everything that has being and thou thyself are not an exception. Consider the law." Now you always hear this is law. Like I said, this law right here. "Consider the law, for all is law, for such exist only in the illusions of the senses. Out of the ether called he its substance, molded and formed by the power of Tolan, into forms he built with his mind." That's why I said God didn't speak nothing. There was no such thing as language. There was no words. So how can God say, "Let there be light," when it is? All it has to do is pull it out of him with his mind. That's why being in his image, everything that you create, everything you see starts here. That's why this is the first thing that's attacked. Mile upon mile, it covered the island. Space upon space, it grew in its might. Black, yet not black, but dark like the space-time. Deep in its heart, the essence of light. Swiftly the temple grew into being, molded and shaped by the word of the dweller, called from the formless into form. You see what I'm saying? That's why I say it's like, if you already have form coming into existence since the beginning, then how is it that you go all the way down the line and you want to see that spirit is impregnated flesh and given a human birth? That's why they want to tell you that the sons of the angels of the heavenly host descended down and gave and intertwined with the daughters of men and gave birth to these. It sounds like some out of Marvel comics. Because we actually know that the true Nephilim is those who are aboriginals, because of if you look at how the planet grows older, everything grows weaker. That also means that the growth is beginning to stunt. That's why the original inhabitants are so tall. That's why the original inhabitants are so strong. At the first inception of this planet, it was at its full strength. The longer this earth is still in existence and grows older, just as man. As you grow older, you grow weaker. So does the energy of the earth. That's why you have an existence now that are not reaching those heights no more. That's why. So it says, out of the ether called he its substance, molded and formed by the power of Tolan into forms he built with his mind. Mile upon mile it covered the island. Space upon space it grew in its might. Black yet not black, but dark like the space-time. Deep in its heart, the essence of light. Swiftly the temple grew into being, molded and shaped by the word of the dweller, called from the formless into form. Builded he then within it great chambers, filled them with forms called forth from the ether, filled them with wisdom called forth by his mind. Excuse me. Formless was he within his temple, yet was he formed in the image of men, dwelling among them, yet not of them. Strange and far, different was he from the children of men? Now it says, far in a past time, lost in the space-time, the children of light look down on the world. Now if you look at it, it says you got, in the Bible you got children of Israel, and right here you got children of light. Now if I've already told you that Jacob that turned into Israel was an allegory, that's not real. They want to tell you that Israel is the formation of Is, Ra, and El, which is Isis, Amun-Ra, and Elohim. But this also draws another parallel. Israel. Hear the question? Israel. Like I said, is Ra, Amun-Ra, Ra the son, El means God. So that's the question within itself. Is Ra, El. So now if Ra is El, and you're the children of Israel, then of course, you being the children of Israel means you're a child of the light. And what child of the light can draw off his mother and father, which is a representation? It's not to be praised, just a representation of the Most High Eternal's power, the Son. Those who are known. That's why I say the children of Israel and children of the light, children of the Son. It's not sun worshiping. All this is science. It's science. The Bible in itself, science. Bible in itself, alchemy, esoteric mystery, occultism. It's all that wrapped in there. All because each person that got into the Bible study, where all this is coming from. The kinetic spiritual science system. It's not a religion. It is a science. And that's why I can code all these books and break every last verse of this Bible down and show you where I can find it in somewhere else. Even the birth of Jesus, I can find it in the Book of the Dead. You can find it in the Zoroaster. You can find it in the Hinduism, with the Mithra. It's nothing new under the sun. It said Jesus is no different from Hebrew boys. Both were born of a virgin birth. I mean, think about it. If Jesus was born by the Spirit who came under Virgin Mary, and you got birth to Jesus, right? That's the same thing with Osiris and Isis with Heru. Because when Set killed Osiris, Tahuti went to Ra. No, Tahuti gave the magical words to Isis to go to Ra to get the word out of Ra, to find the missing pieces of Osiris' body. They found all except one. It was 14 pieces. They found 13, but one was missing, the phallus. That's why the George Washington Monument is nothing but a black man's penis. Because that's what the obelisk is, a phallus. The phallus of Osiris, a black man's penis, is the George Washington Monument. That should tell you something right there off top. But if you keep going on into the Osiris-Isis legend, since Osiris could not be put back whole because of his phallus missing, which was swallowed by a fish. Now you wonder why we got fish and cricket. Well, it was swallowed by a fish. Isis still laid with Osiris and became impregnated with Horus and gave birth to Heru. Don't that sound like? Because if Osiris cannot be made human because he's missing his phallus, and to be a god, human form, you got to have full body. They made him the god of the underworld. So now him being the god of the underworld, he's spirit. He's not flesh. But Isis, which is flesh, slept with Osiris and gave birth to Horus. And even in the Book of the Dead, they tell you that is just symbolism. See, the Book of the Dead tell you that. The Bible made you think Jesus was real. He's our nature. The energy, the people, the energy is. Because Osiris is Greek for Osar. So that's not even Osiris' real name. Isis is Greek for Aset. Horus is Greek for Heru. Jesus is European for Yahshua, which is Hebrew. So they say, what is it in a name? It's a whole damn Latin name. It tells you your culture, tells you your heritage, tells you your lineage. You change your name, you change your reality. You change your whole culture. Just off of this, like, if we did learn what our native tongue was, we couldn't speak it. We wouldn't know where to start. People want to laugh and joke about Africa. All right, that might sound funny, but when that little means I snipe him, it ain't funny no more, is it? Wonder why you got a harpoon in your ass, you know what I'm saying? Wonder you got a strong one. That's because you disconnect the name, you disconnect the language, you disconnect the culture. That's why I keep saying you gotta go back to your ancestry. So let me get to that. I know I'm running over, but I'm gonna finish this up. It says, far in the past time, lost in the space-time, the children of light looked down on the world, seeing the children of men in their bondage, bound by the force that came from beyond. Knew they that only by freedom from bondage could man ever rise from the earth to the sun. And that's why I tell people this flesh is nothing but a prison. That's why you go through Hiram Abiff. They say the only way out is up. That's because the box is this body. The only way out is through ascend. That's why when you look at Asar and Aset, that's the Osiris being the masculine principle, because everything has gender. Osiris being the masculine principle, Isis being the feminine principle. When you put them together, that's why when you go to the Temple of Solomon, you got Boaz and Joachim. You are the middle pillar, because when Solomon stepped through the center of it, you are the middle pillar. Boaz, Joachim, masculine, feminine. Once you combine those two, you give Osiris, Isis. Now that gives birth to Heru. Heru is the third eye. That higher consciousness, that Christ consciousness. That's why you give birth to Jesus. Once you put the spirit and man combined into one. Once you put the masculine and the feminine combined into word, you give birth to higher consciousness. To save yourself. That's why it's considered teaching. Alright, it said, I'm getting off tangent. It said, knew they that only by freedom from bondage could man ever rise from the earth to the sun. Down they descended and created bodies, taking the semblance of men as their own. The masters of everything said after their forming, we are they who were formed from the space dust. Hear me clearly now. Now remember I told you what melanin is. It's the carbon in the universe. Now they said the masters of everything said after their forming, we are they who were formed from the space dust. The carbon of the universe. So who's the master of everything? Partaking of life from the infinite all, living in the world as children of men, like and yet unlike the children of men. And it goes on to say, know, O man, that light is thine heritage. Know that darkness is only a veil. Sealed in thine heart is brightness eternal, waiting the moment of freedom to conquer, waiting to rend the veil of the night. So know ye, O man, from whatever ye inhabit, surely it is one with the stars. You are made of the same substance of the universe. You are one with, but they don't, you see, they make you believe of something outside of yourself, knowing that you are of it all. Thy body is nothing but planets revolving around their central suns. Central nervous system, which is aligned with your chakra alignment. Your central suns. When ye have gained the light of all wisdom, free shall ye be to shine in the ether, one of the suns that light out of darkness, one of the spaceborn grown into light. Just as the stars in time lose their brilliance, light passing from them into the great source, so, O man, they so passes onward, leaving behind the darkness of night. So it's telling you in the beginning, as they said, Adam ate of the fruit and they surely died. This is telling you right here, even the stars itself will lose its brilliance. You, man, has no exemption. You're gonna die anyway. So what was the agenda? You're gonna die anyway. What's the agenda? So it says, oh, now this is the last one, and we're gonna take it on home with this. Formed forth ye from the primal ether, filled with the brilliance that flows from the source, bound by the ether, coalesced around, yet ever it flames until at last it is free. Lift up your flame from out the darkness. I'm gonna say this one. Lift up your flame from out the darkness and fly from the night, and ye shall be free. Hopefully all this information that I was giving will be helpful, you know what I'm saying? Because I pretty much just gave a whole synopsis on how mentally and spiritually you have been put into bondage that ultimately is affecting you physically and financially. When I get, this is going to be a continued series, so next, I expounded on the mind and the spirit. I'm going to go into the body and also go into why I had to make a big key point on ancestral spirituality. And one big topic I want to talk about is, who is the devil? Who is the devil? Because I really feel like that has not been spoken about. Hello. Hey, what's happening? Oh yeah, you came in right at the end.
I know, I had to go to another meeting. I had something to bring you.
Oh, appreciate it. Well, that's pretty much it, man. There's no. Hopefully, all this was helpful. Like I said, all this was to do was break the chains. And when I talk about breaking the chains, it's not physical, because nothing can bind you physically if you're mentally free. And I say this, I'm gonna leave with this quote. This is mine. When the mind is free, the heart is free, and the spirit is free, the body has no other choice but to follow suit. As a man thinketh, so is he. Now let's break these chains, you know what I'm saying? So just leave it for questioning. Anybody got any questions for me? Hopefully everything was self-explanatory. Let's see right here. Is anybody in here got any questions for me? You know, hey, I'm going on Facebook the whole time too. So I'm glad. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Y'all got any questions for me? I can address them out here too. But if not, this presentation is definitely around. Man.